This is a Q Media production.
Welcome to today's episode of Leading Change. In this episode, we're joined by transformation expert Jess Tayel, founder of People of Transformation. We unpack what to do when you're handed a strategy document. Jess guides leaders to transcend the status quo and embrace change by fostering clarity and alignment. We'll explore shifting from product to promise, measuring business capabilities, and executing strategies. From strategy to execution, we'll delve into practical insights that drive real change. Enjoy the episode. Hi, Jess. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Jess, so many companies spend tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands, with these large consulting companies, giving them big strategies for their business, and they get handed over. And I think a lot of executives look at it and think, now what? What should they be doing?
Well, that's quite a typical problem, and a good problem to have, actually, and it's quite common. There's actually a lot of things that we need to go through in terms of how to translate that strategy into a future for the organization. The term strategy to execution is not something I'm a big fan of, because we can just jump straight into execution. That's the easy part. But between strategy and execution, there is a few things that we need to look at. The first thing is, are we really clear? And I want to really kind of double click on that. Clarity is way underestimated. It's not a yes/no question. It is not something that, yes, we are clear on the strategy. Let's go. It is something that we actually need to create the space for, to think about. Are we really clear on the outcome? Not the deliverables. Deliverables will come later. Are we clear on what future do we want to create? Are we clear on what success looks like? And not success what looks like for us as the group who's doing the work, but our customers, internal and external. Are we clear on the roadmap to actually get us there? Are we clear on the problem to start with? Do we know what the opportunity is? Do we know what the problem is before we move forward into what the solution is? So that would be the first component to go through. Unfortunately, under the pressure of, okay, when are we getting this ex-consulting company? When are we hiring the program managers? When are we getting our teams? When are we going to start seeing something? The board meeting is on that X date. We need to give them something. Under that pressure, the chief transformation officer, the transformation leader, falls under the pressure of solutionizing. We think we know what our customers want. Let's just go on and do it.
I'd love to dig a lot deeper into this clarity, because I think that between clarity and alignment and getting a whole bunch of executives on board together, all facing the same direction, is actually one of the hardest things. And I think because a lot of the executives have different parts of the strategy under their remit, so obviously they would want to push their part of it. So how do we start looking at getting this clarity and alignment?
That's a very good question, because it starts with going against the norm of bias for speed and bias for action. To give the right thinking tools, the right understanding of what is it that we really want to do here. It's not because the strategy says so. We kind of assume, a lot of executives would assume, okay, that's the right way to go. This is the right stuff to do. Now let me go and do my stuff. I think there's a bit of a critical thinking to be applied, a filter. Are we really doing the right things before doing things right? There's so much emphasis and focus on delivery, but are we really doing the right things? And that requires us to sit and pause for a bit and actually give the space to think, what is the problem? Do we really understand what the problem is? You would think that this is something that was done in the strategy, but strategy still sits at a high level that you kind of need to customize it for you. So are we really understanding the problem? Do we really understand the opportunity at hand? Do we understand what our customers want, not what we think our customers want? And be able to draw that roadmap that is also not in isolation. Back to your point, every exec will have part of the strategy to do. Strategy and creating that future was never about doing it in isolation. And it's never about, have this one big meeting where we're all talking about something. It's about that roadmap integrating all the points together. Do we have the right points? Connecting the points together. And then once we're clear on that, then we go. The funny part is some of the listeners would say, oh, but that's going to take a long time. We just need to go. Go. It's ironic in a sense that we don't have time to pause and think about things enough, go really deep, but we do have time to redo the whole thing. It's about quality, high level of integration, embedding. Embedding is a whole different thing. So you can deliver something, but is it actually going to be embedded and change the fabric of the organization so it becomes a stepping stone into the future? That's a whole different thing. The other part is to actually be able to design for humans. I think there is this of course, this human-centric design and all of that. Unfortunately, where I've seen in most organizations, it's an activity. It's a service design blueprint, or it's a customer journey. But is it really that what we're designing for our customers, is that something that our humans actually would find meaningful, easy, which goes back to behavioral science, and if something is easy, it's more adaptable. And is it something that actually they are empowered to do? I think that whole empowerment thing kind of come after the fact. Now we have this, now let's train them. Kind of works together, not after the fact. Goes back to the whole well-being of our users, stakeholders, to ensure that they can actually do what they're doing.
There are a lot of points that I want to dig deeper into. The point that you mentioned about time, and we don't have time, and ironically, we have time to redo it, but not to actually think, what if you were going to sell to a organization, or if you were a leader within an organization and you needed to say to the board and to the executive, we need to actually think this through. How would you sell that to them to say, we need time. This is what it looks like. It will be, say, a series of workshops or one-on-ones, or how does that actually look practically in an organization? Can you share some examples you've experienced?
There are two parts to this. There is the how part, but I think there's something that precedes the how part, is actually to be open to doing this. And there's, in that specific part, there are other two components. It's being able to understand the pain points and sell through pain points. Organizations obviously have a history of delivering programs and strategies where there are some incidents where it did not go as planned, or it took longer, or we spent more money, or the stakeholders didn't really, adapt to what we thought they will. So that's one part. But then there's the part of being, and it really comes back to this for the lack of a better word, being coachable, open, and humble to accept that there might be another way of doing this. That's to get into having a conversation. Because in cases where, no, we've always done it that way. That's the most dangerous statement in any organization. We've always done it that way. Realizing that we want to change the status quo, but we really are the status quo. You can't be something and trying to achieve something else. You got to be that change yourself. Now, in terms of the process, yes, of course, there is a process to get from where the strategy says from a direction, intent, high level to that's what we need to do. And these are the principles and guidelines in order to give to the team so that they can have clarity, so they can go. It is obviously a series of workshops, conversations, being able to really hone in and not wearing the consultant suit where I think you know what you guys need. It's not that. It's co-creation conversation between all of us, asking the right questions. And it comes from a consultant who also have seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and a big amount of ugly, and also where it really, really worked before. I would personally start with a conversation about what do we really want? Because I don't think we sit enough with that question. We kind of just put on a track, a train that does not have brakes or maybe very bad brakes, and go. But we really don't sit and really talk about what is it that we really want. And what is it that we really not just the finance department or the procurement or the operations, it's all of us collectively. One thing that I believe really takes us out of our head and outside into that conversation is, who do we serve? We have to get out of who we are to who is it that we serve. If we are that customers, what do we want our customers to feel? What do we want our customers to say about us? And that's really moving the dial from the mindset, from product to promise. Our sales and marketing arm are extremely strong. They're amazing. But when it comes to operations, it's silos within silos with automated processes, but very manual processes where the customer needs to give you the same exact information multiple times. Call center is a whole different world on its own. And it's like, but that's not the promise. We forgot why we're doing what we're doing in the first place and just went and started the doing before actually thinking about the problem, the promise. Can we deliver to the customer based on our business capabilities and people capabilities? That becomes your program of work.
So really, the first step in a transformation, having it successful, is alignment. We can't actually go forward without that.
Absolutely.
Now, you talked about business capabilities and the fact that maybe some different parts of the organization are some are better, some are than others. How do you actually measure that? How do we know what our current existing capabilities are? And then how do we map that against the future capabilities that are required?
Yes, that's a very good question. I would use a discipline called business architecture. It has been there for a while, but I guess it was for the longest time misunderstood to be part of the IT world. And it's not. It is really about, if I was just to put it in a very simple English, if your organization is a map, what would it look like? That's business architecture. Just really, really oversimplifying it. How do we know how good we are in marketing, in business development, in operations? The link from customer, promise, contract, account management to operations. How do we know what is in operations? What's really happening within operations? The first step is obviously to map the business capabilities. The second step, and there are frameworks for that, to measure where are you sitting in terms of the maturity of the business capabilities. And it starts to become clear, given that, execs give time for this exercise to happen, because it does take time to actually map that out. It becomes, you start to look at the organization. If I was to look at the maturity of the different capabilities within an organization, you start to see an uneven, not balanced strengths of the muscles within the organization. I like to call capabilities muscles. And I like to use the metaphor of the human body. If you've got certain muscles in your body that are quite strong, and others that are either not activated, not used, weak, what will happen when you start doing a certain exercise? The strong muscles will take over, where they're not supposed to be working on it to exercise the other ones. It's a compensation pattern. That's exactly what happens in an organization. The strong muscles will take over. The weak will get weaker. And then until they get not activated at all, they're not there. And you get an uneven performance within the organization. And at that stage, really, whatever strategy you do, you're just going to have more of the same. It's kind of starts to become a repetition until you actually focus on the capabilities that need to upskill or level up. And to what direction? Level up to what? That's where strategy comes in. Level up to reach what exactly? And then we start building those muscles. Unfortunately, this kind of conversation does not come from the strategy unless you have a very mature strategy, and it's not a team that does strategy in isolation and then just disseminate it to the rest of the teams. When a strategy is integrated, it takes business capability, scores, and maturity really into consideration, and these become projects to actually uplift that capability. It may not have a direct line of sight right now to the future, but it's something that you need to build to get there. It's like an athlete who knows that they're going to go and do a marathon. The marathon is in end of 2025. They're not going to say now you start running and see how we go. No. We don't run. We kind of do an assessment. weak areas are, where you need to do some exercising, mobility, stretching, build some muscles, the mindset, all of that until you reach that point. So business capabilities is a crucial point in understanding what is it that we need to do to get there. Again, what gets in the way is bias for speed. And I've seen this happen in so many organizations where business architecture practice, even if it's just one or two people, is born. They start doing stuff, but because this stuff is not output deliverable that directly maps to the new credit card products or the new mortgage products or the new AI capability or this or that, they stop. Not knowing that this is something you kind of need to do in the background all the time, and this becomes your competitive advantage, really your competitive advantage to build that future for the organization's capabilities.
Do you want your team to achieve peak performance? Well, then it's time for a change. Welcome to Leading Edge. We're not about traditional training. We're about transformation. Our outcomes-based leadership development programs focus on real results through behavior change and mindset shifts. We customize programs tailored to your team's needs, packed with cutting-edge content based on neuroscience and positive psychology. We run engaging workshops, personalized coaching sessions, and practical exercises to ensure an enriching experience for your team. How does it work? We dive deep. We start with surveys to identify strengths and gaps, which helps us to design a bespoke program designed for your team's success. With our approach, progress is inevitable. Our expertly facilitated workshops and coaching sessions ensure growth, and the results speak for themselves. Are you ready to take the leap? It's simple. First, choose your program. We have 5 to choose from, or you can customize a program to suit your team's needs. Second, pick your duration. We deliver 3, 6, or 12-month programs. This way, we can reinforce the learnings over time to drive real change. And finally, plan with us. Each team is different, so we make sure that what we're delivering is exactly what you need. Let's unlock your team's potential together. Contact us today, and let's start this journey to transform your team to achieve greatness. We're talking about business capabilities, and we're saying that some are stronger and some might be weaker. And now if you have to go to an executive and say, hey, your area actually isn't that great, it's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow. It's kind of telling them that your baby's ugly, right? How do you tell that to somebody and get them to come on board and realize that actually I do need to step up?
That's a very good question, because that's every consultant's struggle, is you wanted to say your baby is ugly, but you really can't. It comes back to, what is it that you want? How do you see your function contributing more? So we're trying to get the positive aspect of that. And if they don't maybe have a full picture of that, that's where the consultant, the advisor, can paint a picture of what is possible. So it comes from a place of possibility. What is possible here? Instead of having 100 people doing something that's quite manual, how do we shift that into something that there's part of automation? You get your insights. I'm sure we can link that back to pain points, where a lot of executives, I'm caught off guard, and there's ad hoc stuff that I need to do, finding it really hard to get my business cases approved because that line of sight, or because that it's all about marketing, it's all about the product development, but I'm the one who's supporting all of that. How do we get your voice out there? So playing to the pain points, but also showcasing what is possible. It's all about painting the picture. And that's where the more mature, more senior consultants come in, because they've seen this play out in different organizations, and they can give you what is possible, what are your pain points, where you can get there. And then once the hook is there, then, okay, how do I do that? And then obviously there's conversations about, you'll see that mindset comes in. Oh, no, I can't do that because that's going to take too long. Actually, it's not. And even if it's going to take too long, imagine the cost of not doing that in the future. So all these conversations that plays into pain points and possibilities and trying to paint the picture. So it's a co-creation instead of here's my presentation. This is what I think you need. Go. And just hoping for the best.
Now, a bit earlier on, you were talking about integrating all the different parts of the strategy and then being able to embed them because they've all been integrated. So how do you go about understanding which parts you go forward with and how you integrate them together?
Integration embedding is really where the rubber meets the road. And unfortunately, it's not an area that a lot of organizations pay attention to. It's kind of we do it as we go type thing. I'll start with integration because integration is about connecting the points. Knowing that, again, coming from that mindset of business capability, no one business capability can operate in complete isolation. Who depends on you and who do you depend on? That's a very important conversation. I don't think we have this conversation enough to secure actual team commitments. And really, can we really work on this together? Everything happens once the project is there. Like you're working in a box called projects. On that project, and you move from one meeting to another, project to project. It's kind of like one box to another box to another box. But how does it all come together? While you are in execution, you are in that doing mode, it's good to have that, focus, this project, that project. But obviously, you would want to have those conversations before you get into that space. How does all this come together? Can I tell a story from these 5, 6, 7 programs that would actually create a strategic outcome that would get us and move the needle towards that future? That's the integration part. And through the integration part, we will realize if we do the integration part really well, in 99% of the time, just not to say 100%, we're trying to do too much. And we're not focused enough on what really moves the needle.
It begs the question, whose job is it to ask those deep questions? When you're talking about embedding and, how does it matter? How are we actually going to make this work within the organization? These are questions that I would have thought a change lead should be doing. But oftentimes we find that they're actually asking kind of the more tactical questions. How do we actually get people to use this thing as opposed to really kind of more emotional and real kind of more strategic questions? So, whose job is it? Is it the change leader's job to do it? Do we need to upskill our change managers to do this differently? How do you propose we actually do this?
Those high-level conversations need to come from the executive team. They need to do that. Change managers, at the end of the day, no matter how much mastery they have, they can start to embed some conversations, start conversations, have coaching questions. That's amazing. But reality check, their ability to change things at that root level has a ceiling on their head of the maturity of the organization. They can talk from here till end of times, but if the execs do not, or the executive team, are not willing to have the conversation, there is no framework and a process. There's no space to actually channel those kind of conversations. It's not going up and down in a way that is safe for people to have those kind of conversations. Oh, and we really pride ourselves to really challenge the status quo. It's not going to go anywhere. So really, it's everybody in the hierarchy is a change leader. And every level of conversation has its opposing owner to that. And those kind of things we talked about strategy to future. Are we really doing the right things before doing things right? That's something that the executive team need to sit and actually create the space for. Not just to have a chat or a meeting, but there's a process behind it, to framework, to go through it. And then cascade those conversations down. Once you cascade those conversations down, then you allow people through KPIs, through conversations. Once the mindset starts to change, you start to seeing a flow going from bottom to up. And then you start having that flow up and down going. It's part of the increased maturity of the organization. But if it's not happening at the executive level, C-level, it's not going to go anywhere. You might have your A players in the weed doing stuff. They know what is the right thing to do because they're getting trained or coached on what is mastery and how to do all these things. But they're going to sometimes be banging their head against the wall because they're not getting it, or they're asking me to do things and I need to do other things, or they're not seeing what I'm seeing. And you end up with frustrated A players that will end up leaving the organization. Or, worst, they're just going to put their head down, get on with it, because nothing's going to change. There is hope at the end of the tunnel, because those change leads, those transformation leaders can start having those conversations. The last thing you want to do, but sometimes it just comes to that, is I told you so. Sometimes it just has to come to that. They need to see what I'm saying, and I told you so. It's not like we're deliberately failing something, but you can tell, if you have the right experience, you can tell something is not going to go the way it should go. And then we have a proper conversation about what could we have done better? Not finger pointing, not blaming, but what could we have done better? And that goes back to what we said earlier about being open, being coachable, allowing the organization to learn, really learn, and unlearn and relearn from the perspective of what can we do better.
Sounds like having that intellectual honesty all the way through the organization is really such an important thing. And I think when you have that and then you peg that against a psychological safe environment, then it's okay to have these conversations. And because it sounds like you going in and coaching with all of these executives and telling them you actually need to be asking the right questions. But if it's not psychologically safe, it sounds like it could be challenging. Have you found organizations where there's a bit of a seesaw balance about that?
Oh, absolutely. That's quite common. You would have an executive member who has that way of understanding things. They can do this with their teams, but it comes back to we don't work in isolation. You will always be up against that ceiling, that invisible barrier of we need to collectively have that. Yes, it can take longer by that one superhero exec to have those conversations with their peers, to throw in some seeds, start conversations, do showcases so people can say, oh, actually, there is another way to do this. But unless we collectively, as a C-level, as an executive, have that openness, being coachable, trying to think that what could I have done better? Or thinking of, and that's something I've done with one organization, where asking the exec, if you were the barrier, what do you think you would do? Barrier to success. What do you think you would do? The answers that came back, they said, well, we actually do most of that. And it's not to say, it's on you now. Let's start the blame exercise. No. Sometimes you will have bigger issues that you can't just by yourself answer to, but we collectively can. I don't have resources. I keep asking for resources. I never get one. There's a lot of ad hoc. There's a lot of operations, and no one sees the amount of operations that I'm doing. I don't have the right systems in place. I've been asking for this over and over and over again, but no. So there can be problems that feel like your hands are tight. But unless we go around the table and have this collective conversation and really coming from a mindset of we know we could do better and realizing that transformation starts with you, because if you can't manifest it yourself, it's not going to happen. You have to kind of see it in your head first before you can actually do it. Then we can start the conversation from top down. Otherwise, bottom up. It's just not going to work, or it's going to take too long. And by the time it actually penetrates to go up, you would have lost everybody that had those voices because I can't do this anymore. This organization is just never going to get it.
You've mentioned that there's quite a few challenges that come across. When you're looking at actual execution of the strategy, what are some of the big challenges that you've seen?
First, trying to do too much. That's kind of a problem across the board. And the reason why we try to do too much, I find, is back to two root causes. First of all, we're not looking at things from a business architecture point of view, from a business capabilities point of view. So we're not bundling things together in a way that this is a package that we kind of need to deliver together on this. So it ends up being you this bit and I do this bit and I do that bit, and hopefully everything is going to come through. The other thing is the KPIs. The KPIs are working sometimes against what the programs are trying to do. If all I need to do is be green all the time, I've got my resources on board, we're delivering according to the plan. Is that it? Like that's your job? to just deliver through the plan. But are we really doing the right things here? To question things, to stop things. In one organization that I worked in, which is quite mature, one of the KPIs for the execs, how many programs have you stopped? And that was like a complete game changer, because now I have stopped 0 for the last 6 months. Are you sure? And some were like, actually, we had to stop 5 in some other parts of the organization because we're not going to be able to do them. And if we do them, it's going to be kind of half-baked. So we don't want to go through that. So it's the KPIs and it's that speed. Speed is going to come. Speed is a byproduct, but it's being clear before you actually start the delivery. It's like having a Formula One race. It's really, really fast. Do you think those racers have never been on the track before? They have been many, 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 many times. So they know the map, they know where they're going. And when the time comes to actually compete and do something with speed, they know their way. It's the same thing. You can't ask for speed and direction and alignment all at the same time. Everything kind of needs to take its place.
You've mentioned a lot of different parts of the way that we need to address transformation or enabling a strategy with an organization. Is there like a comprehensive framework that we can look at, that we can actually kind of go piece by piece to be able to deliver?
There is, and I'm writing a book about it. It's something that I've always used with organizations that are doing large-scale change and transformation. The premise of it is moving from strategy to future requires you to actually realize, before we start thinking about strategy, but what is the future that you want? Thinking with the end in mind. What is that future? What is the promise to customers? I find it quite interesting in some of the workshops that I run and asking some of the teams, who do you serve? Who are your customers? That is a kind of a hard question. Or the question is, the person who buys the credit card. That's it? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of more people in that pipeline before you get to that. It's those, I don't want to call it basic because it's not basic as in simple. It is basic in the sense that this is foundation. We've missed the foundation of what is it to actually move the strategy to the future. It's understanding the strategy is not just an intent and a bag of, I want to do all this stuff by 2025. Is also that execution is the art of exclusion. What is it that you don't want to do? And being obsessed, absolutely obsessed of that promise to customer, and then working together as a team. There's so many things that came into the organization. I call them kind of, they worked back then, but now they're kind of old school a little bit. Projects. It's like boxes. But he's bringing it all together. No, not really. Like no one person kind of understand that bigger picture. Asking the teams who are actually delivering, what is it that you're doing? What do you think the outcome is here? They'll give you an output answer, not an outcome answer. And then once you deliver something, it's not embedded. It's not well penetrated within the fabric or organization. And then the KPIs are somewhere else. So it's those foundational elements that kind of need to be brought in back to the conversation, the mindset shift that needs to be there in order to design something that actually works. This whole conversation we're having is a design. I always say that there's 3 problems in any organization, 3 categories of problems. You have a design problem, an execution problem, and adoption people problem. When I talk to organizations and try to put all these problems in a bucket, it's all execution. But it really is not. Some problems and the big, hairy problems are not execution problems. These are design problems. And asking the transformation team or the transformation lead or the change lead to tackle design problems, as in the way we've designed the whole solution was not right to start with, in the execution phase is not fair because it's not going to happen. And with the bucket of the people adoption, bucket of that problem type, trying to throw more resources at it because you got your change lead 3 months before the end, or expecting magic, or doing a lot of trains and comms and trying to be the chief nagging officer and hoping that things would land, it doesn't work. So we got to see things for what they are. And as you've mentioned, have that intellectual honesty that this, what we're doing, got us somewhere. Great. But if I really want to continue to be on this market, deliver to the promise, and really create that future for my customers and for me, for here to stay, and not for my people to burn out, I know I need to do this differently. You may not know how, and that's fine, but at least start with having that curious mind about there must be something better out there.
Jess, to wrap up today, now I don't know if our listeners know this, but you have created an incredible community called People of Transformation. This is a place where people can join as a member and actually access you and your incredible wealth of information, which I have really enjoyed this conversation. Do you want to just give us a quick brief and tell us about the community and what you're offering?
Yes, absolutely. So People of Transformation was something that is a dream of mine that I always said while I was at corporate, there will come a day when I'll put all this knowledge from myself and what I've learned from others as I stand on the shoulder of giants that I've learned from, put that information, content, practical content in there. But as you know, content does not change the world. It's really the conversation, the coaching, the mindset shifts. And that's exactly what People of Transformation is about. It's a membership program in a community format from a select number of members. I love to make sure that I click with my members before they become members to ensure that they're really in it because they know that they want to spread their wings. They really can do more. And what's available in the market may not really cut it. It's more of the same, maybe just have a little bit of a look to it, a facade to it. So People of Transformation is that membership program in a community format that allows you to have that mastery of change and transformation. And through having different conversations, you'll be able to see things differently. And that's really the premise of the program, is that you see things differently. Because when you see things differently, then you know what is it that you need to learn to feed that hunger that you want. And to allow for you to actually make changes where you are. It caters for senior practitioners in change and transformation, but also for leaders in C-level who want that top-notch type, like, okay, what do I need to do? How do I do it? And not take ages doing that. But also works with consultants and senior and partners in consulting companies where they have a message, they know what is the right thing to do, but find it hard to penetrate into organizations that is like, oh, I'm just going to pick and choose from the stuff that you told me, or I'm amazing. I'll just do things the way I've always done it, and I'll survive that way. So People of Transformation caters for that. It's a learning space where there is content, there's coaching, and also masterclasses where I bring in guests from around the world that would allow the members to see things differently, because I'm not expert in everything. Getting people to talk about how to sell, how to do behavioral science, and how is that related, business architecture. So all these different components of change and transformation brought into the People of Transformation and all engaged in conversations.
Great. Where can our listeners find you?
I pretty much live on LinkedIn. So you can find me there or go to peopleoftransformation.com.
Excellent. Thanks so much for being here, Jess. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe. Taking just 2 minutes to leave a review on Apple Podcasts would mean the world. Your reviews play a vital role in expanding the reach of this podcast and making a bigger impact.